It's easy to take your surroundings for granted, until they turn against you. One wrong turn, one unfamiliar road, and suddenly, you're somewhere you don't recognize, somewhere you shouldn't be. Whether it's a deserted highway, a forgotten trail, or a side street that wasn't on the map, the world is full of places that swallow people whole. Sometimes, you're simply lost. My girlfriend Emma and I loved hiking. We'd been all over the US, but this time, we wanted something different, something off the beaten path. So we booked a trip to Slovakia, drawn in by its untouched landscapes and vast, sprawling national parks. We weren't worried about getting lost. GPS, topographic maps, and plenty of supplies. We were experienced, but no amount of experience could have prepared us for what we found. A place that wasn't on any map. A village that shouldn't exist. And by the time we realized something was wrong, it was too late. The hike started off perfect. The air was crisp, the towering pine trees swayed gently, and the sound of a distant stream followed us as we made our way through the forest. For the first few hours, everything was normal. Then the GPS glitched. I checked my phone, frowning. That's weird. Emma looked over my shoulder. The screen froze, then the map shifted, our location jumping miles away from where we actually were. No signal either, she muttered. We weren't worried, not yet. We had a compass and a physical map. But soon, the trail disappeared. And by the time we realized something was wrong, it was too late. One moment, we were on a clear dirt path. The next, we stepped onto overgrown terrain, thick grass swallowing our boots. Where the hell did the trail go? Emma asked. I checked the map again, but it didn't make sense. According to it, there was no forest here, just empty land. Then we saw it. The village. At first I thought it was just old ruins, remnants of an abandoned settlement. But as we got closer, we saw it wasn't just ruins. The buildings were intact, small stone houses, roofs made of rotting wood, windows, dark and empty. Some had doors hanging off the hinges, others had cobweb-covered carts left outside, as if the owners had vanished overnight. There was no sign of life, no animals, no wind, just silence. This isn't on the map, Emma whispered. My stomach twisted. It didn't look like a place that had been abandoned for centuries, more like a place left untouched for a few years, as if someone had just walked away. Maybe it's an old shepherd's village, I said, though I didn't believe it. Emma didn't answer. She was staring at one of the houses, and the curtain that just moved. I grabbed her wrist. Someone's here, she whispered. I nodded. We weren't alone. Hello? I called out. My voice sounded small in the heavy silence. No answer. Then, footsteps, software behind us. We whipped around. Nothing. Just the village entrance. The same empty street. I turned back to Emma, forcing a smile. Let's go. She didn't move. She was staring at something. I followed her gaze, and my blood ran cold. At the end of the village, in front of an old church, was a statue. Tall, weathered, a human figure. At least it had been once. But now, the face was gone. Not eroded, not broken, just missing, like someone had carved it away. And in its place, a hole, gaping, dark, like a mouth screaming silently. Emma grabbed my arm. We need to leave. Now! I didn't argue. We hurried back toward the trees, but the moment we stepped past the first house, we heard it. A whisper, coming from inside one of the buildings. I turned my head just slightly, and froze. Because through the cracked doorway, something was watching us. A shape. A pale face. No eyes. No mouth. Just smooth, empty skin. And then, it moved. I grabbed Emma's hand and ran. The forest was thick, branches clawing at our clothes as we sprinted, lungs burning. I didn't dare look back. But I heard them. The footsteps. Fast. Too fast. And then, the whispers. Right beside me. I risked a glance. And I saw it. Something was running alongside us. No, not running. Gliding. Its pale, blank face inches from mine. Then, I tripped. I hit the ground hard, the air knocked out of my lungs. Emma screamed my name, pulling me up. That's when I saw the handprint, pressed into the dirt beside me. Too long, too many fingers. We didn't stop. We ran until our legs gave out, until the trees opened up, until we stumbled back onto the trail. The second we crossed the tree line, the air changed. The sounds of birds, the rustling wind. The forest was normal again. We collapsed, gasping for breath. I checked the GPS. It was working again. And the village? Nowhere on the map. When we got back to town, we asked around. No one had heard of any abandoned village in the park. But one old man, his face pale, told us a story. About an ancient town that was cursed. About people who had been taken. About things that looked human but weren't. Things that could steal faces. And when we showed him the location where we found it, he just shook his head. There's nothing there. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I hear it. The whisper. And I know it followed us back. I was driving through the middle of nowhere, heading toward my sister's place in Idaho. She had gotten sick a few weeks ago, something serious, and I didn't want to waste any time. It was a 9-hour drive, nothing I hadn't done before. The roads were empty, miles of open desert and farmland, the occasional gas station breaking the monotony. Around midnight, my GPS started acting up. Rerouting. I glanced at the screen. The highway ahead was marked in red. An accident was blocking the road. Take the next left, the robotic voice instructed. I frowned. I'd driven this route dozens of times. I didn't remember any turnoffs around here. But there it was. A narrow paved road, barely visible in the dark, cutting through the desert. I hesitated. Then, like an idiot, I took it. At first the road seemed fine. A 2-lane strip, smooth asphalt, not a single crack. No streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the pitch black. But after about 10 minutes, something felt off. The road was too perfect. No signs, no tire marks, no evidence that anyone had ever driven on it before. And then I realized. My GPS stopped working. The screen showed nothing, just a blank grid. No service, no signal. And up ahead, the road ended. Not like a dead end. It just faded into dirt. I hit the brakes. My headlights flooded an empty stretch of land. Nothing but dry grass and open fields. No buildings. No intersections. No reason for this road to exist. Then I saw the torches. Flickering orange lights, moving in the distance. At first, I thought it was a campfire. Maybe a bunch of kids messing around. Then I saw them. A group of figures, walking in a slow, perfect line, dressed in white robes, each carrying a burning torch. Their hoods were pulled up, faces hidden, and they were walking straight toward me. I shifted into reverse, ready to get the hell out of there. Then, boom! A deafening slam against my car. I turned. Something had hit my passenger side window. No, someone. A woman, pale as death, her hands bloody, her eyes wide with terror. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then, behind her. Hands. Dozens of hands. grabbing her, yanking her back into the dark. I didn't think. I just hit the gas. I flew backward, spinning onto the road. The figures didn't react. They just kept walking, torches flickering, their faces hidden under hoods. Then, one of them raised a hand, and the other stopped. My entire body locked up. Then, they turned, all of them, at once, in perfect unison. And then, in the dead silence, they started running. I floored it. My tires screeched, my headlights bouncing wildly as I tore down the dirt road. Behind me, the torches bobbed up and down, closing in fast. I wasn't going to make it. Then, a turn-off, a side road, barely wide enough for my car. I swerved onto it, dirt and gravel spraying as I gripped the wheel. The road was rough, twisting through a cluster of dead trees. My heart hammered. Then, the torches were gone. I didn't stop. I kept driving, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, the GPS still dead. For 5 minutes, nothing. Then, through the trees, I saw it. A house. An old wooden structure. 2 stories. Windows dark and empty. Something about it felt wrong. But the road led straight to it, and I had nowhere else to go. I stopped a few yards away, leaving the engine running. The porch light flickered on. Then, the front door creaked open, and a voice, calm, familiar, called out, "You're late." I nearly pissed myself. It was the GPS voice, but it wasn't coming from my phone. It was coming from inside the house. I slammed the car into reverse. The second I moved, the porch light died, and from the open doorway, a figure stepped out. No torch, no robe, just a man, dressed in a black suit, his face smooth, too smooth, like it had no features at all. And he started walking toward me. My body acted before my brain. I gunned it, nearly flipping the car as I tore through the trees, bouncing over rocks and roots. I don't know how I made it back to the highway, but the second I saw taillights in the distance, I nearly sobbed. I sped toward them, barely able to breathe. When I finally pulled over at a gas station, I checked my phone. The GPS was working again. And the road? It was gone. I checked every map, every satellite image. There was no road, no village, nothing, just empty fields. Like it had never existed. I never told my sister what happened, but I didn't sleep for weeks. The night shouldn't have been this difficult. I was on my way to visit Hannah, my best friend, who had recently moved to a remote town in upstate New York. She had always talked about escaping the city, finding peace in nature. But as I drove, the roads became narrower, the streetlights disappeared, and the wilderness grew thicker on both sides of me. I glanced at my smartwatch GPS. It was my lifeline, keeping me from getting lost in this unfamiliar place. Then it spoke. "In 500 feet, turn left." I didn't question it. The turn led me onto a narrow dirt road. At first, I thought maybe Hannah's place was tucked away somewhere, hidden in the trees. But the farther I drove, the more wrong it felt. The road was rough, filled with deep cracks and loose gravel. My headlights barely cut through the thick fog rolling in. I checked my watch again. The map glitched, flickering, the blue route line shifting erratically. Then the screen went black. A second later, new text appeared. "Continue for 3 miles." But the map was gone. After another mile, I saw it. A fence. Old, rusted, nearly falling apart. Behind it was a gaping black hole in the ground. An abandoned mine. I tapped the screen of my watch. "You've got to be kidding me." It buzzed again. "You have arrived." My heart dropped. I looked around, hoping to see a house, a driveway, anything that made sense. But there was nothing. Just trees, fog, and that hole in the ground. I pulled out my phone. No signal. I tried to turn my car around, but the second I put it in reverse, something moved near the mine. A shadow. Tall, thin, shifting just beyond the headlights. I felt my pulse hammer against my ribs. It could be an animal. It could be my imagination. Then I heard it. A whisper. Not from the trees. From my watch. I ripped it off my wrist, holding it close to my ear. Static. Then, a voice. "Come inside." I dropped it like it had burned me. That's when my headlights flickered. And for half a second, I saw something clearly. Something standing at the mine's entrance. Its arms were too long. Its eyes reflected the light like an animal's. Then, it moved. Fast. Straight toward me. I slammed the car into reverse, tires kicking up gravel as I sped backward. The figure disappeared into the dark as my headlight swung away. But I didn't care. I just needed to get out. The dirt road felt twice as long on the way back. My watch, still on the passenger seat, buzzed nonstop. I didn't look at it. I didn't want to know what it said. Eventually I saw pavement again. Street lights. Signs of life. The second I had service, I called Hannah. She answered on the first ring. "Where the hell are you?" Her voice was panicked. I tried to explain, but she cut me off. "You didn't take the left, did you?" My stomach dropped. She knew. I parked outside a gas station, hands still shaking. Hannah told me to send my location. When she saw where I had ended up, she went completely silent. Then she whispered, "That mine was sealed off decades ago." I swallowed hard. "I saw someone there." Her voice trembled. "No one should be there. No one alive."